Good Monday morning and welcome to Twinn number 15, This Week in Nerd News, where in 5 minutes or less, I will quickly share 5 areas or 5 articles that are worthy of us paying attention in this particular business week in IT and IT security. This first one is about how the Pwn to Own contest of 2021 ended with a 3-way tie, but really what's more interesting than this 3-way tie between these 3 different teams is the fact that they successfully hacked Windows 10, Ubuntu, Safari, Chrome, Zoom, Microsoft Exchange, Microsoft Teams, and even Parallels Desktop, the most common commercial hypervisor on a Mac, in order to run Windows or other operating systems on Intel-based Macs. And in the process, it's actually quite revealing to see that, by the way, these are videos that you can look up if you need to, but how in Safari there was a integer overflow that was being utilized in order to get kernel-level code execution. But the most interesting one to us was in light of proxy logon, the vulnerability that's been plaguing us for weeks already, is that there's a Microsoft Exchange server category, and the dev core team combined an authentication bypass and a local privilege escalation to completely take over Exchange server. Now, I couldn't help but let you know that we do have an Exchange 2019 honeypot, and the story is written up on adamnet.io/exchange2019 honeypot. So those that are interested and looking for updates on how that's going by just giving it proper zero trust protection are welcome to review that. The second story is about how Windows and Linux devices are under regular attack with a new crypto mining worm, and this is called sysRV, and this botnet is a growing threat on a day-to-day basis, and there's lots of detail here about the different exploits being used for this. But here's what's interesting is that if you take a look at how they are sharing these different indications of compromises, or IOCs as they're called, you can take a look at your passive DNS history, and if you're on a tool like Atom Networks, then this is obviously prevented when you're utilizing good practices. So even if you were infected, the infection would be able to do no damage. And the third story is about how with this new mobile carrier, Q-Link Wireless, it's actually an MVNO or a mobile virtual network operator. With nothing but a phone number, you're able to look up the account name, the ID, the login, the contact number, and the address. Now, this is frightening because we're seeing this over and over and over again, where companies are simply having a hard time keeping their customer, client, guest info private. It just goes to show that you got to be vigilant about who you give this information out to begin with. And on our fourth story today, unfortunately, Facebook has had yet another leak, and there's also lots of news about how their previous 500 million user leak happened. And it was undisclosed about how it happened. In fact, the users are never notified, even though the laws now require that in many jurisdictions to have the users notified when their data is breached. What's interesting is this particular breach is distinct from the 500 million user breach from last week. And the reason we know that is because there is this Telegram bot that actually reveals information that's not in the first 500 million user database. In other words, it's different than the one that Troy Hunt runs at Have I Been Pwned. So take a look, and how many of these is it going to take before we collectively decide no more data for Mark Zuckerberg of our own? If it were up to me, we would start that today. And the last story here is about how a VPN vulnerability of Fortinet allowed 2 manufacturing operations to be ransomed. And it just goes to show that we can never be too careful about publicly exposed services. And so make sure you pay attention to this story. But most importantly, everyone you love and care about, that their public-facing services are fully patched with no known vulnerabilities. And what I also want to show you real quick, did you know that there is a Big Detective extension that you can get in your browser? These are the guys that allowed Kashmir Hill to cut the big tech giants out of her life. Now, she does describe it in detail, what she had to go through in order to make it happen, and the tools that she ended up having to get people to develop with her. But that's now available. So for anybody who wants to try and see how difficult it is to live without those tech giants, here's your chance. Take care and have a wonderful week. Bye for now.